Welcome to On the Edge with April Mahoney Brains. Here, this is the spot where the conversation is pointed, the guests are sharp, and the responses are never dull. Welcome home, Brains. There's only one requirement to hang out on the edge, is that you open your big brain and close your small mind. Did you bring your thinking caps? It's time to put them on, because the conversation starts now. Well, hello, Brains, and welcome back to Where? On the Edge with April Mahoney, the place where the conversation is pointed. Look at that. The guests are sharp. They drink from the cup, and life is good. We have Angela Burchardt, and she is coming from Australia. I'm so excited to have her here on the edge with us. She does some great work. We have a lot of synergy and similarity. We were both Toastmasters. Toastmasters International is a phenomenal group, nonprofit organization that helps individuals with public speaking. We both have been celebrants for funerals and weddings. I as an ordained minister, and she's doing that work, but she has a very unique approach, how she interacts with the family and helps them through the grieving process, but also the preparation before they get married or after a loved one has passed. She's a former yoga instructor. Nothing like a good downward facing dog or warrior too. And so much more that she has to offer. She's going to share that with us here on the edge. Brains, let's welcome her on the edge. Hello, Angela.
Hello, April, and hello, viewers.
Yes, they're brains. They like to be called brains.
Hello, brains.
So dial back. Tell us a little bit about how you show up in the world.
Okay, I have spent most of my adult life working in Australia, in different parts of Australia, but I also worked in London for a time. And I've travelled quite extensively. But mostly through my life, it's been a very strong spiritual drive, one way or another. I did grow up in the Anglican Church in Perth, and since then I've explored a lot. I certainly did my yoga training when I was really young, and I've taught yoga in different places, in Perth, in Melbourne, in Sydney, and in Bali when I was actually on holidays.
Oh my God, in Bali, lucky. You know, let me start with that, and then I'm going to continue with your story. But yoga, I hear so many people, I can't get in those poses. Brains, it's not about the pose, it's about the breath.
Absolutely.
If you control the breath, the body will do whatever it is, and it takes time. It's like a rubber band, it's elasticity. You have to stretch. But also yoga is a preparation for meditation. Wouldn't you agree, Angela?
Absolutely. I tell people not to worry about their body, but just to breathe and stretch. When's a good time? When you breathe in, you hold. When you exhale, you get more of a stretch. When you can elongate your breathing and deeper breathing, the body gets more relaxed. And it is good breathing allows you to prepare for really good meditation.
But there's so many different forms of yoga. There's the spectrum yoga, there's, traditional yoga, spiritual yoga. Do you teach in different forms and different modalities of yoga?
Well, I'm not actually teaching yoga at the moment. I haven't done it for a little while, since I had an accident actually about 10 years ago. But what I have been teaching is color therapy and meditation on Zoom. Apart from, certainly we've had, I've run courses physically for people, but when we had lockdown, it's now over 18 months ago, I put the courses on Zoom, and that's worked really well. The interesting thing I found is those who started coming to do color therapy and meditation courses before lockdown didn't want to go online, and then they came back when in Perth we were allowed to again. And those who started on Zoom didn't want to come physically, even if they were local. So I found that a very interesting phenomenon. And the Zoom has been really successful, actually, because I also do some shamanic healing on Zoom.
Well, tell me a little bit about the color therapy. Colors speak volumes. They have a language all their own. There's a lot of people that do art therapy when they are in a place where they really can't speak about their pain or their anxiety. Children use art therapy. Tell me, what is the benefit of color therapy and what do you do? How do you use it?
Well, color therapy, I did my training. It's got to be, it's over 20 years ago now, with the Aurosoma color therapy system. And I ran it in conjunction with the yoga school I was running in Sydney. And because the Aurosoma color therapy system actually works directly with the chakras, it really complemented what I was doing with yoga. The way in which I work with it is absolutely to balance the chakras. And with the meditation experience, you can go a little bit more deeply into releasing any of the blockages that you might have, whether it's from this life or past lives. And in more recent times, I've been bringing a lot more of the shamanic work into it as well, and do some past life journeying and releasing some old stuff, old programs in ourselves, which we really need to get rid of. And it's working really well. I'm getting a lot more of that kind of work now than I was 2 years ago. And 2 or 3 years ago, I had a lot more celebrant work. I was doing more weddings. I was doing more funerals. Now I'm doing more of the energy healing work, the shamanic work, and the color therapy. It's just incredible how things have changed.
It all just flows together in a synergy because of the mind, the body, the spirit, and the energy that it produces. Tell my brains, what is shamanic and shamanic healing? A lot of people don't know what that is.
Okay. I describe it in a very basic way, and some people don't like me saying this, but it's actually energy healing and energy balancing. And what it is people working with different systems of energy. When a client comes, they give you permission to enter into their psyche in a different way. And you can feel whether a person is blocked or not. And I work with my spiritual guides. I ask permission for my guides to work with the other person's spiritual guides. And I also ask for permission to enter their Akashic records and really to retrieve soul elements that they might have lost over the time from trauma, from different lifetimes. Maybe there's been difficulties in childhood in this lifetime, but then it's likely to have some kind of programming from a past life, from trauma that's been suffered or dealt out. So it's around balancing that person's energy to be able to live a fuller life. And really, as you say, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, getting all working in congruence. And when a person has that spiritual aha moment, it's so beautiful because their face lights up, their eyes are brighter, and their whole body opens up more. It's just a wonderful experience, not only for them, but for me as the practitioner.
Let's talk a little bit about you being a celebrant, because you've gotten all these great modalities in your toolbox. You understand the Akashic records. You didn't tell me that. That was new. But the Akashic records, but really that's going back into some epigenetics, past traumas, and also these records, I've interviewed several on them, and they really unfold a lot. These are the historical records of every human being on the planet. People don't know that.
I call it soul records because when it comes to this incarnation, it's a different body that this time than we had in previous lifetimes. Right. So I call it, it's your soul history or your soul records.
So now you're helping people because you can talk, whether they believe in this or not, because everyone is going to come to you for a wedding or a funeral with different religious beliefs or spiritual beliefs. They're not all the same. You got to be very careful with that. You got to be a good listener to hear what they need, and then you have to color in that white space for them, and you do color therapy. When two people are going to get married, I know I've had, as I call my come to Jesus meeting or my come to April meeting. We have to have a conversation, you know, because before I bless this holy union, I want to hear their intentions. I want to hear what their plans for one another. I want to hear how they're willing to sacrifice. What are some of the things that you listen for in your initial consultation before a wedding?
Well, first of all, in Australia, people have to give at least a month's notice.
Oh.
And as a government registered celebrant, I don't advertise myself as a spiritual celebrant, or certainly I can't register as a religious celebrant, because you have to be registered with one of the churches to do that. So I call myself, I just say celebrant. And when they know that I'm a spiritual person, and in some of my promotional work, I'll say, whatever your spiritual or philosophical background is, I like to use that when I'm designing a ceremony for people. So I ask them about their background, their family, what religious or spiritual inclinations they might have. And because I'm regarded as a non-religious celebrant, I get a lot of people who aren't interested in talking about religion or spirituality anyway, but the interview is still the same. I get their background and what it is that they want in their ceremony, and I design the ceremony based on what it is that they want and their aspirations for their very special day and what they want from the future. Because I've got a questionnaire which asks people, I say, what do you most love about each other? And there's one for each of the partners. Do you, what's the most loving thing, or why have you fallen in love with this person? And on the other side, I'll ask, and they only fill in what they're comfortable with. But if the people are going to fill in a questionnaire, they usually fill in most of it. And I ask, what are the challenges in your relationship? And they're quite likely to say, oh, this is, this drives me mad, but, I love him anyway.
Right. Absolutely.
But they don't all want a colour therapy session or a colour reading. Some do and some don't. And they've all got information about my background, and some of them just want the legal stuff. They want, we just want something really short and on the beach or in a park, or more recently, it's been small groups in people's homes. So it varies quite a bit. But I know quite often people say, oh, I really liked what you said about, colour therapy, or I really like what you said about healing past lives.
Their own vows. I love that too.
How yes,
they actually speak from the heart, that they've taken the time to reflect back on their relationship, reflect back on their marriage, look at where they are today and where they aspire to be, and come up with beautiful vows. It's very touching. It's very heart-wrenching. But you also do something very special when it comes to the transition into the next life or to the next phase of life with people that and their families that have died. A lot of times, you will get a preacher, teacher, clergy, rabbi that will come and bless a soul that they've never met, that they know nothing about. They just speak in general. Some people have never followed a religious doctrine, or they're not close to someone. How do you prepare these families? Tell us about your special gift that you offer them.
Well, I'm good at going and meeting the families when somebody has died, and I'm often asked by the funeral director, because my name's on the list of non-aligned sort of celebrants that's available, and the funeral celebrant might recommend me to a family. So then I ring them up and set up a time when I can go and meet the family. And when it's to do with funerals, I prefer to go to their place rather than come to my place. Whereas with weddings, I ask them to come to my place for the first meeting. So I go to the bereaved family. I interview them about what they want to say about their loved one. I ask about the person who's deceased. I have a look at the photo, and I'll find out whether the family wants me to write the eulogy or if they want to do it themselves. And there's just a general talk about the person who's passed. So I get a whole sense of them. I get a sense of the family, and I might give them some examples of previous work that I've done, although quite often they don't want to be bothered reading somebody else's ceremony or service. And I'll talk about that, but I might leave them a copy just to sort of give them a general idea. And then I'll get back to them after they've had time to talk within the family. And so we'll have another conversation, and I'll write a draft for them to approve. I'll email it and I'll say, now, this is the part that I need to say. The rest of it is entirely up to you as to what you would like. And I draft it to suit the family. Now, one of the things is when you get a really, really difficult personality, you have to be careful. Look, I won't bag anybody
Right.
who's passed, and there might be fighting in the family and there's all sorts of things. But I did have one where I said, and I'll use, this is not her name, but I'll use it. Everyone knows that Annie was such a difficult person to work with, but we know that she had a heart of gold. You just didn't necessarily contradict her to her face. And everybody laughed because they knew.
They knew. And, and a lot of times, my brother would say that. My brother said, why do you always have to speak so nicely about the person that passed away? And you know that they were a hellion. But what you want to do is you want to honor the dead. You want to honor their living. But we have to be truthful because we've all come across that. How did you find yourself in this place of all these different great modalities, of all of this great energy work, teaching yoga? Go back to your childhood. Tell us a little bit about your upbringing and what led you this way.
Okay. Well, I was born in Burma, in Rangoon, after the Second World War. And my father was in the British Army at that time. And when the war finished, he was in charge of stores and helping the soldiers to go home. But because his family had been living in Burma as missionaries, he had contacts there, and he stayed there a bit longer than loading people onto ships and sending them home. And of course, with the conditions in Burma were very bad. And he had a friend from the army and who had already come out to Australia and was working in Canberra. And he wrote to him and said, you should come to Australia. The two things he said, there's food and work, you must come. So what happened is my parents were already married. I'd been born, and the next ship that was available was coming from Rangoon, was coming out to Perth, or was coming out to Australia. And the first stop was Fremantle. They got there and they looked at it and they said, oh, this is fabulous. And they got off the ship in Fremantle. And because before the war, Dad had been trained as a school teacher. When he got back, and he had friends already in Perth, from Burma. And they decided to, well, they helped, the community then helped each other. Dad went into updating his teachers training at the local university, the University of Western Australia. And his friend helped him to find a house. And although, first of all, what we did was, because he was with the education department, they sent him around to country schools. So as a very small child, and I'm the eldest of four, the others were born, well, two of the others were born when my father was moved to different country schools in WA. And the fourth one was born in Perth, where he got a job at Christchurch Grammar School, and he taught there forever until he retired, actually.
So
and he made very
good. So you not only come from a spiritual background, you come from a teaching background as well.
Yes, yes.
How old were you when you came from Burma to Australia?
10 months.
Oh, you were just a tiny thing.
Yeah.
Have you been back to Burma at all since then?
I have. When I got married, and when I was traveling, I was working in London. I got married in London, and on the way back to Australia, we had a brief visit in Burma, and my mother was really terrified. Don't do it, because she knew how bad the army is and how badly it treats people. But you know, when you're in that young age, there's nothing going to stop you doing what you want to do. And we were adventurers. We were doing a lot of traveling anyway. So, and I was traveling on a British passport too, as was my husband. So we got 7 days with the normal visa requirements. And I really enjoyed it. But the interesting thing was, and at that time, there was no problem with going where we wanted to go. And there was absolutely no problem at all. But of course, I didn't feel that I belonged there. I really didn't feel I belonged there at all.
I was going to ask, what feelings welled up, even though you were 10 months, there was still an energy, there was still a conversation, there were still certain sights and sounds and smells that embedded in your body.
Do you know, I was 30, and my because I wasn't going to go into the fears of my mother. I wasn't open to not having a good time. Right. And because of my accent, nobody thought that I came from Burma. And if I said, you know, what my heritage is, I was born in Burma, and my race background is Anglo-Burmese, or it's actually Anglo-Indian. And, you know, where people there didn't relate to me, and I didn't relate to them because their cultural upbringing had been so different to mine, and I didn't try to belong. I was a tourist, and I was perfectly happy with that. So
and that's honest. So many times people really try to assimilate. Oh, okay, I'm here, and I'm not an Australian. You know, I'm from Burma. I'm gonna be this person that you really aren't, and that's disingenuous. It's really disingenuous. So now you're in another country. You're in Australia. You've immersed yourself in the culture, in the lifestyle of the people there. Where else would you like to travel in the world? If you had an opportunity to just pick up and move somewhere else, where would that be?
Do you know, I'm rather partial to Bali.
Really? I've never been, and it's on my life list, but with COVID, I can't get there. They say it is such a spiritual place. I've
traveled a lot, and I'd say, as just being a normal tourist, I love Italy. I especially love Tuscany, and it never felt like a place I was actually going to live, put it that way. But because Bali is on the doorstep almost of Perth, well, certainly of WA, and I've been there a few times, and I feel very comfortable there. I love it. So
there's so much to learn. The architecture, the food, and it's so spread out. I haven't heard a lot about COVID being down in Bali either.
Oh, there's a lot. There's a lot.
Is it? Wow.
In Indonesia, there's been a lot, and because it's a small series of islands just off the coast of Australia, I think the rest of the world doesn't know about it, and they don't talk about it. But WA has had its closed borders for ages, and the people are not allowed in from certain places, and they can't come in from Indonesia.
You can't come in from the United States either. I tried.
Okay.
I couldn't get there. Have you been here to the States?
I have. I have been about, when was it? Was it 2018? I'm with a member of the Group of 40, which is the headquarters in Arizona, just outside of Phoenix. And there's a man called David K. Miller and his wife Gudrun, who live in Prescott, and or just outside of Prescott. They had a conference there so I went in 2018, and I've been a member with this group for over 12 years, and David and Gudrun have been out to Australia too. And when I was living in New South Wales at Lake Macquarie, that they came out to the East Coast, and so I was a member then. But now that everything's gone online, and has for years, I'm also part of the international meditation team. So Jane on the Gold Coast writes the international roster for everybody to lead meditations, and I'm on the international roster for leading meditations.
So let's ask you a little bit about meditation. That's another thing that people can't get their head around. It's quieting the monkey mind. It's not, it's not rocket science, but it is for some because they cannot sit still and just be quiet and just listen. It's not this whole, now again, there's a practice to it, but you don't have to go through a whole bunch of rituals. There's not a whole lot of preparation. There's not a whole lot of expectation. Sometimes you'll come out of a meditation with nothing, but don't always have the expectation that you're going to receive something. How would you prepare people that have never meditated before to get into that headspace of quieting the monkey mind?
Well, as an old yoga teacher, I know that it's the best thing to do a yoga class first and then get your body totally relaxed and lead people through the meditation process. But of course, a lot of them go to sleep.
I know they do. They do.
And that's okay.
I do that in hypnotherapy, but then when I wake up, I was like, oh, some NLP was implanted in me because now I'm doing things differently. You think that you're asleep. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
But you know, the thing is, it's okay because it's working at the subconscious. And of course, I'm not actually teaching yoga classes anymore. So what I'll do is if they're online on a Zoom call, you know, get them to roll their shoulders. And so, you know, some people just lie in bed and that's perfectly okay too, but get comfortable in a nice couch. And then a little bit of breathing practice. And what I'm finding is the meditations aren't as long as when I was doing it with people physically in the room. But okay, that's the Zoom call, and that's usually part of the color therapy course, or even I might use it as part of the shamanic session. But for just the straight out telephone meditations that I do with the group of 40, it's really the meditation might go for about 15 to 20 minutes. But I would say to you that most of the people who are on that particular call or with that group are actually mostly advanced meditators. And if they go to sleep, it's really okay. They know it's going into the subconscious. But one of the interesting things that happen, that even if they nod off while they're listening to you, they always wake up at the time when you're winding down and bringing it to a close. And I've spoken to a lot of people that say, I went to sleep, but gee, I always wake up when you say, oh, now take a deep breath and feel your feet on the floor.
Right. Well, so again, because it's the subconscious mind. That's
absolutely
80 to 85% of the person that we don't even know brains is living in that subconscious mind. A lot of people are afraid of that, Angela, and you know that, and I know that. They, but it could be so much joy. So many things are revealed. So many things to help you guide your life through this present journey. So many things to look forward to in a future life, in a future journey. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. And if there's something and Angela, as your guide and your facilitator, feels or sees that something is going awry, that's her job to protect you, to bring you out of that trance-like state in a gentle kind of way that you're not impacted the rest of your life. Try it, brains. I'm telling you, meditation is the business. Hypnotherapy is the business. And Angela is the business. Before we close, I want to talk to you a little bit about Toastmasters International and what that did for you. Teaching you parliamentary, I can't even say it, parliamentarian, I can't even say it now.
Parliamentarian
procedures, how to step to the lectern, how to introduce a guest, how to tell a story, how to keep people interested, how to reduce your filler words. What are some of the benefits that you received from Toastmasters International?
Do you know that I joined Toastmasters, it's over 5 years ago now, but when I moved to a new place, And I met a woman at a business networking event who was starting a new Toastmasters club in the area. And I told her I was a celebrant. That's where I was getting most of my work at the time, I must tell you. And she said,
great networking.
She said, that would be fabulous. She said, come and join us. And she said, we want to start this new group and it'd be wonderful to have you as part of it. Anyway, we got on really well. And I went along to this new club that was starting up in a suburb called Butler, which is in the north of Perth. And I went along and other people were coming on, and I couldn't believe how much I learnt, because I'm not a person who's ever been particularly shy in standing in front of a group of people. And I've always been able to talk. But I realised with the evaluation system, I had lots of filler words, ums and ahs. I couldn't believe how much I was learning from this system where I thought, no, I'll be fine. And it's just fabulous, the range of people with their skills and their backgrounds. And in this sort of one of the groups that I went to, there's this young man who was so shy. He stuttered and he spent his life on a computer. You know, his posture was bent over, his skin was not clear, his eyes were not clear. And his mother told us that he was so shy, he didn't go to social things. And she got him to join Toastmasters because she could see the benefit. Well, I tell you what, a few months down the track, and here he was standing up straight, not stuttering, or certainly a lot less. 2 years later, he was not stuttering at all. And his eyes are clear, his skin's cleared up, and he smiled. And I'm going, wow, this doesn't even look like the same boy, you know. And I was sitting next to this woman whom I hadn't met before. I said, could you believe that young man 2 years ago was so painfully shy, he was stuttering and he couldn't speak? She said, no, I never would have believed it. And honestly, the transformation of people is
it really is. It does so much for your self-esteem. Again, your posture, it makes you stand up straight in a lot of different ways. By the way, you look extremely gorgeous in that pashmina.
Oh, I wonder where I got this from. No.
We love you. We love you deeply and completely. We do. Everything that you have done in a selfless way. You've done for the betterment of other individuals. And, you know, I pay tribute to you. You've learned to speak in a certain way. You've facilitated marriages. You've been able to help people transition. You're working with them now with color therapy. You have also been able to deal in a very respectful, religious way with people. Tell my brains how to get in contact with you, Angela, especially if they want to work online. You're just a point and a click away.
Absolutely. Well, my business is called phoenixrisingtransformations.com. And that's certainly for my shamanic and my color therapy work. And for my celebrant work, it's Angela Burchardt celebrant.com.au. But really, for the online work, to work on Zoom, just send me an email at either at info@angelaburchartcelebrant.com.au or angelaburchardt1@gmail.com.
We're going to find you because I'm going to put all of that information on the back and in the show notes. I want people to work with you. I want them to touch you. There's something about your voice inflection. I can feel it through the computer screen. That's why you're having such success.
Oh, aren't you gorgeous?
You know, well, that's the truth. You know, and I'm not going to say a bill of goods. I wouldn't do that. So thank you so much.
So I like to encourage people, if they want to do some color therapy and meditation, to book for 8 sessions. So what I do is I go through the 7 chakras and we finish with a ceremony of release. And I'm doing it one-on-one with people. Book the times that suit. And now I'm doing the shamanic sessions one-on-one online as well. So life is really interesting.
It is interesting. And there's so much yet that we have not uncovered and left to discover. So thank you so much, Angela, for being here with me. Where's the postcard? Oh, here it is. On the Edge, the place where the conversation is pointed, the guests are sharp, the responses are never dull. We are full of love. We are here to help you in the beginning or help you transition towards the end. Please go in and subscribe and like, love, share this information with everybody on the planet. You know, there's 2.4 billion people, and me and Angela's only touched 1.2. So we will talk to you again really soon. Thank you so much, Angela. Please come back and keep us informed. We love you.
Thank you so much, April. It's absolutely been my pleasure.
All right. Bye, brains.
Bye.